Where's the big one, boss? War. The workshop is on the horizon, looking for the biggest gets the crump. Will the Orks receive GW's hammer? Let's talk about the current Orc status in the meta, and as well as a wish list of some sorts. Of course, we'll keep it somewhat fluffy with what we like as enthusiasts and somewhat realistic. If you're not used to this, we'll also unpack why we think these things. I'll also show some stats as how the Orcs are doing compared to other factions, and overall just give my thoughts as how we should look at this going into the data slate as the Orc community, kind of smooth out some what people would consider as myths or general ideas that people had about Orcs and how they actually panned out, and so much more. Of course, this is live, so be sure to get involved, and of course, rewatch gang with the comments. So of course, let's look at taking the good with the bad. So I'll give a nice short condensed like pros and cons list just to make it fun before we actually start looking at the stats, to kind of summarize how I look at Orcs and what we're doing right now, and also talk about some of those generalities that I was saying are people kind of take to consideration with Orcs. So what I would consider good, right, is we have a relatively diverse detachment selection, which is uncommon for most factions in 40K. So though people would say, the success and the term good is relative in itself, to unpack that, I would say that when you look at our win rates statuses, though Warhorde is holding up the vast majority of players, all the detachments that we look at as a whole have their skin in the game for actually getting very close to the general consensus that Warhorde itself has as its stats for how it's winning and performing. But as we look at our overall win rate as Orcs, 48% win rate roughly. We're going to take, of course, a look at it. We're going to look at stat checks. We're going to look at stats hooper. We're going to just kind of peep at a couple of different sites. But in the eyes of GW, though, sometimes we look at them and like when they pull out their stats, they'll like have some really odd numbers where you're like, where did they get that? Nobody else is reporting those numbers. But that being said, 48% win rate in the eyes of GW is considered good. Good as in they don't really consider us a problem that they want to mess with us and bring us down necessarily. So if you're someone that's worried about getting nerfs, I don't necessarily think you will. Though, of course, there is the argument for, Gaz and the boys but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. As for Orcs as a tier list army, of course, depending on how you're doing your tier list, if it has A or S tier, I would say somewhere in the upper middle tier Orcs tend to be around. We have the ability to overcome certain power creeps and high tier armies. We can bang it out with any of the best factions that there are in 40K. But then it comes down to kind of like our bad, right? The bad, as we're taking with the good, is kind of like the context all around that last good point that I made, right? Though we're able to overcome the odds, we do struggle with some of these generalities that I'm going to say, and this is also what's kind of holding us back as a faction as a whole and stop us from being an actual relative contender at the top. So as for our actual bad, I'd say that we lack unit diversity. So though I may be playing the Hunt or Warhorde or Bully Boys, nonetheless, I'm very likely to have a Beast Snagga boss of some sort on just about every list, a War boss on just about every list. And if you're even looking at Gaz can be taking in roughly every detachment that we're talking about as well. So there's also the lack of diversity that even though these detachments are somewhat stringent and boring in the sense that they're really restricted, a lot of our detachments are, somehow they still end up having very similar either units that they're all using, or they get like a very niche like archetype that they can run, and it's just that one. At least the perspective is. I know that I share with our community many different thoughts and ideas, but to each their own. As a war boss, we're just talking about what we think here. And also I would say Orcs are unreliable at the top tables, which is what the stats that we're going to look over are actually going to show. I'm going to demonstrate that and tell you what I mean by that and show it out for anybody who's not too stringent, right? I'm not a statistician here. I'm not stat checks myself. We're just going to look at it and say what the numbers are. That way because the whole point of why I do this is I'm very much in the camp of the fun, more thematic, casual players. I totally understand playing that way, and I enjoy playing that way as well. But I also have a lot of competitive players that I'm friends with that I tend to play with more and kind of lean more into that style personally myself. So there's both sides here. So when I'm breaking down the good and the bad, keep in mind that I am able to play devil's advocate for both sides, right? So as we go through this, understand that I'm not directly leaning too hard on any of these things, because there's always a modicum of truth, right? The truth in both sides. The truth is in the gray zone generally, right? But when I speak about unreliable at top tables, I mean, if you look at the majority of the top performing players and what armies they choose to pilot, they're doing that based off the reliability at top tables that they can do against their peers, right? So though you and I may have success in our local metas against a dozen or so people you meet regularly, or maybe 2 dozen people that you'll see at your RTTs, that's not the same as when you're trying to be the best of the best and compete to go 5-0, 6-0, 8 round events and such. I would also say that there's been an increase in the diversity of enemy actual rules and capabilities, right? So as we've seen more layers of defense unravel, we've also seen more ways to interact with orcs and let's say counter charges from the Wrath of the Rock, or we have the new Vintrix card that are coming out that are like, well, we'll just have all the rules in the game that you don't really want to deal with as well, and we'll be able to take the initiative from you and blah blah blah. You'll able to get you know just general things that are coming out as the meta has unfolded. People are realizing that it's not that we can't overcome these units in a one-on-one situation, or even in a smaller sort of context of like, okay, if I'm at a 5-round event, there's just a chance that I have enough tools in my orc list that I can deal with these diversity of rules. Well, there's more and more niche types of rule sets that orcs have to try to overcome, and generally, as we get to the next bad point, is our lack of dynamic rules and very kind of linear style and game plan of, well, I'm gonna try to just line up this perfect one-shot hit on you. It becomes more and more problematic and circumstantial when it's just so many diverse styles that you could actually run into as an orc, yet we don't really have that many styles of offensive approach, to be honest. Though I would say we also like the dynamic rules in that sense. But let's take a look at what I'm talking about with how the orcs are doing and the meta as a whole right here. So couple things I wanted to point out that people actually find to be the most important isn't just the player percentage win rate here, right? We're looking 48% win rate. Cool. That's not even that bad. You got Tyranids below us at 47, Death Guard at 47. Those are some of the armies people consider a little bit weaker or situational. Space Wolves at 47. Astral Militarum, of course, are lads on the other side of the coin at 45. People would consider them to be not that powerful, but the real stat that we look at here are, one, the actual event wins. How many events can this faction actually win? And can I creep this over? I'm trying to creep over a little cleaner so you guys can see how many 4-0 event starts are orcs getting. So though I always, and I'm known for being positive and encouraging for the most part for the orc community, to the point that some people think that I'm too positive and think that means I don't understand the competitive aspect, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying is, what really counts in the eyes of GW and the eyes of the competitive optimized player base is that they care about how often you can get 4-0 at the start of an event and how often you can actually go out and win events, compared to, well, I went 4-1 in the GT, but I lost round 1. Right, that's totally a different circumstance compared to I won 4 games to start and then lost my last one. So these are the numbers purely people take into consideration. And though our overall win rate and diversity of our detachments, which I could show as well if you guys want, but is in a solid position, a respectable position. When you look at our actual ability to win events, we've only won, this says 2, I think it's actually 3 overall. Comparison to something that another faction that people generally poo-poo at and think are weak would be Tyranids, coming in with 10 event wins. Then you also have Astral Militarum coming with 7 event wins. So even at a gracious period, you would look at Astral Militarum having double our actual event wins, with still being technically a worse faction by general stat numbers. If you look at the actual event starts, Astral Militarum 17. Then we'll go again and look at Tyranids 24 and or starts. Then we get to Orc 16. again, inferior to two what would be considered weak factions in 40K. So you'll look at other factions in other channels, and I appreciate all these other channels Lovey gets that talk about orcs, but they'll look at orcs as in, well, I know this one dude who crumps everyone around, and it's because that guy's just a just like, not that I crump everyone around, but just like me, I play that one faction and I make it work, kind of become a specialist. That's not necessarily a reflection of how powerful our codex is. What's a reflection of that is what they can do at the top layer events, top tier tables, have consistency at 4-0 events. And like another thing we can look at is what we've seen at WCW, right? So at Worlds, Orks barely one, I think it was one person broke into the top 100 of the best players in the world. And of all the people that took Orks, one person broke into the top 100 and he barely made it to 91. And even then, it wasn't a Ward Horde list that didn't have gas, none of that stuff. All the stuff that you would consider the most meta stuff didn't even end up on the best worlds list. So again, it's like, what are we actually talking about when we're talking about the Orcs peak potential? The general player base would say, well, you got gas, 20 boy combo, you could do anything, you can overcome anybody. I've seen it. Well, you've seen it in a game, but not in a consistent take. Another kind of more weak faction, shout out to Disgustingly Resilient, love you gets, who were sitting at the top of the meta, and then they got hit with nerfs like GW likes to do. And some people consider their nerfs to be too gentle. Yet we look at them, they consider themselves, no offense to Disgustingly Resilient, not in a place to say whether you're bad or not like that. What I will say is you're winning more events than us still, and able to win more events than Orcs. And when this goes to 4-0 event starts, again, this is what the number that would define if you're bad or not. Only 14 for Death Guard, and Orcs are sitting at 16. So very two low, performances. Yet look at Death Guard, and they have a ton of players. And Orcs have a very respectable amount of players as well. So if anything, we're looking closer to a Death Guard level of bad than what people would consider Tyranids, Astra Militarum, Space Wolf. Well, not Space Wolf aren't considered bad, but some people, nuanced players, would say that. You're looking at World Eaters, for example, a very common faction that's used to compare us to a certain degree. A lot of times people see us as a melee only army, which I'll talk about later because I still have a lot to unpack, even though I'm going to try to keep this within 30 minutes. I would say that the World Eaters army, again, 33 4-0 starts, which is awesome. Good, congratulations to you guys. I'm not saying you guys, I don't want them to get nerfed or anything. And 8 actual event wins. And so you're looking at, well, the win rate says one thing, 48, 49. Oh, we're about the same. The amount of players we say are pretty solid as well. How often we'll see them at events, pretty similar as well. When it actually comes down to what we're seeing at the top, Orcs are actually more reflective of being a quote-unquote bad faction than a good faction when it comes to our top table statuses, right? So though I'm grateful that we can win events, that we can still go 4-1, 3-2, sometimes go undefeated at events because you get that proper win path, which you don't get into these weird problematic matchups or these unique rules that you have to actually interact with and you don't have tools for. Instead, you just get to bang it out and get stuck in. You can run through people and have great results. Yet, at the end of the day, when you're looking at what I would consider as a weak top table faction, other than in the hands of the most optimized players, would be Thousand Suns. They're notoriously known for being just extremely hard to pilot, and only a few nuanced badasses can function with them. Here, 2 event wins, almost identical to the Orcs, and then 9 event starts. So that's what became bad, but 49% win rate. So there's a lot of context in here that I wanted to actually show and unpack for the stats that people actually care about when looking at when looking at what is considered a good faction or not. It's not just the general win rate. It's not just can people go 4-1. It's when are they losing their games? How are they losing their games? How long did it take for them to lose their games? How many total all GTs can they actually win? How big are those GTs they can actually win? So that's why I'm actually in the camp of we still could use a I don't want to say generous because I don't think everybody needs to be just buffed, but I do think that it's not out of the question for us to receive buffs, though people might be under the pretense that we're in a good position because of our general win rate. So that's why I wanted to show that, just to kind of lay the groundwork for as I unpack some of these things. It's not that I'm being overzealous or greedy. I'm very much taking everything into consideration and saying I think we can get some of these and it's not unrealistic, but also I'm going to be exploring why I think GW kind of takes these weird approaches with orcs, and hopefully they kind of offer some positive suggestions or advice, that way going into the next edition things don't get too sloppy. So can orcs have nice things, right? Which is the other question that a lot of people ask. And of course, this is live, so I'm seeing what you guys are getting. Don't worry, I'll get involved in the live chat soon. You guys are stacking it up. But can orcs has knife things? Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not just trying to be a complainer. What I'm really trying to say is this is the feeling of most orc players in the orc community right now. Of course, there's always the fact of codex creep, right? When people talk about, well, if a codex comes out early in an edition, it tends to kind of just fall back on the power wayside. And then GW put us in a weird predicament with more DACA, with data sheets coming out in the middle of the edition, which isn't generally common for all factions in 40K. So we had a lot of exceptional cases. But so when I say nice things, I'm not saying we don't get models, we don't get cool detachment rules. I'm talking about more actually common things that I would like to see with orcs. So what do I mean by that? When I say dynamic rules, a lot of the time people would say, well, orcs just do the one thing where we call the one, we smash into you, and we just crash out on you. That's true. And I think for the most part, where we're sitting at now is people kind of forget that orcs are, even according to lore, even though I know it doesn't have to be according to lore with how rules lay out, but it's both, right? It's both. It's a little bit of both, obviously. When we're talking about these things, is are known for being a mob kind of mentality army where they can actually solely evolve and become better as the battle unravels. Maybe get involved in ways to actually make it to combat other than I just advance and charge one time at you. There's no really dynamic way to cross unit buffs, have effects from one unit affecting another one other than Makari or Gaz, optimize ways to deliver them outside of the wall other than you use transports, no reactionary moves, no really interesting ways to get invulns or power increases to your units outside of the wall. The only detachment that actually really did that was Dreadmob. Why I had so much fun with it. So then we look at lack of common rules, unable to make tactical mistakes. One thing here is honestly the tactical brigade itself. I personally am very bothered by the fact that tactical brigade has been neutered so hard, and one of the things I would like GW to pull back on. I don't think it's too ridiculous for GW to pull back on the changes it made, but very much need this to affect mounted units better. Very much need it to be able to make two orders in this case, because for other factions they wouldn't dare be this restrictive. It wouldn't even make sense to be this restrictive. Is to be honest, if you look at how orcs actually lay out for what our codex has, you can start to kind of look at it as, imagine Space Marines not playing with dreadnoughts or tanks for half an entire edition. That's essentially how orcs feel right now. We're not able to use walkers, mechs, any kind of interesting long range units. It's very much just be limited to infantry, though you have a deep collection of units. So you're not able to make tactical choices because all of your obviously units that you're going to use commonly all rely on and revolve around the wall, which makes it not that dynamic and fun. Then we go into GW struggles to balance our multi-phase damage. What do I mean by that? Well, if you've been playing with Orcs since Index Hammer, you know for a fact that playing for mortal wounds, not just shooting, not just charging and fighting, but mortal wounds with your trucks has been a 101 very good thing and power source of orcs since you started the edition. Utilizing bomb squigs has been very important for you the entire edition until bomb squigs became trash. So orcs have already been playing, well, we want to do mortal wounds to you, we want to do charging wounds to you, we want to do fighting and shooting chip damage on you on the charge. The fact that GW itself on all of our shooting weapons, took away assault is outrageous, right? Our units should almost all just be able to assault. Almost all weapons should be able to assault at all times. It's already taken our time on the clock. Probably still wouldn't be useful to use it half the time. But the fact that they don't even understand that and they took that away from us shows that they're not even able to implement the ability to utilize our multi-phase in a subtle, calm way. So then we look at, well, orcs must be bad at shooting because lore, but must shoot because lore, right? Because if you look at our actual codex, or let's say 8th edition, right? 8th edition, you guys look at sustain right now. Orcs already had sustain. It was called Daka as an actual detachment rule. Not only did you get Daka, but you also had reroll ones innately as a rule. And now people would be like, no way orcs can have that. You would shoot everybody off the table. It'd be outrageous. It was totally not that crazy. It really wasn't. And our weapons probably had more strength and more AP in some ways. Not all, but a couple ones here and there. And so there is argument that GW just doesn't understand that we are not a simply fighting combat army like World Eaters. Though, then you look at World Eaters and you go, wait, you're supposed to not be good at shooting? What is that thing over there? What is that? Oh, you have blast, strength 10 minus 3 damage. What? Oh, what? And you're bad at shooting? Oh, and that thing has like 7 attacks with sustain at strength, whatever. So then that thing also can fight my chaff off it if I end up touching it with them. Okay, cool. You guys are bad at shooting, I'm sure, right? Even though your one Forge Fiend is better than every single tank or shooting platform that I have, and more reliable. That requires no buffs, no synergy, no detachment, really, dynamics other than you just put it in and it does its thing all the time. But oh no, World Eaters are just a shooting, or just a melee army. What? So it's just kind of a weird position where you look at us and you say, well, they're like World Eaters, where they go punch you, and if they touch you, you die. That's not the case. We don't hit hard like that. We lack stuff that actually hits hard like that. I mean, if you look at like a Slaughterbound, the new melee character that World Eaters got, congratulations. Not hating on you having that. Absolutely, you should have something cool like that. But orcs have nothing similar to just a straight up Slaughterbound dude being able to run around and crump everything on the battlefield in elite combat. It's just hilarious that GW doesn't seem to realize that we actually were somewhat reliant on the bomb squig mortal wounds as a way to implement more damage. The truck being able to give us more mortal wounds was impactful. Being able to chip people down with our remedial bad shooting and weapons. If you're not going to make our weapons reliable, then they need to be able to be shot in tandem with our melee. Because if they're not reliable, it needs to get a little couple hits on them or something, right? So then let's move into a little bit more of my positive, along with still some of the negative output, is unpopular potential. So I'm in the realistic terms of GW isn't necessarily going to look at our best units and make them better. They're scared to, let's say, make tank busters better because they already were such a menace. So there's a chance that these unpopular units have potential to become useful if they just get a couple tweaks. Now, before you check out with me and think, oh, you're out of your mind, Wall Tactics, remember, GW actually did some really niche, nuanced changes to our walkers. Though it wasn't enough, and even though it was still kind of like, wait, you did that, but you didn't do the obvious stuff. That's true. That's true. But let's keep in mind, for them to even consider our Killican ability means that they were understood that our walkers are being looked at. Our Death Dreads, being able to do mortal wounds on the impact, though it still doesn't make them worth it, and they're still not good. The point is that GW still found that unit and said, I'm willing to buff that. So with that in my mind, I decided, well, let's unpack that a little more and maybe push more into that, along with more wish list items that I think we should have. So orc walkers, in my opinion, on the cusp of being useful, because the more you're looking at how the meta is laying out with 3 wound, now 4 wound models all over the meta, but you also have chaff units that are tending to be alongside them that having to clear up with as well, there's a good chance that walkers being multi-phase will be important between their small arms fire, their actual ability to shoot in combat, their ability to do mortal wounds on the impact, deliver their own infantry from their transport potential, and actual have some big guns as well, and big 6 damage punches from walkers or 3 damage from death dreads and cans. I think that as long as they get the proper Titanic Walker keywords, they can actually get some great benefits, but they need more than just that. And some of it would be point decreases, right? More Orks need to come down, Death Dreads come down, and I would even argue Killicans come down, even if it's just 5 points here and there each, but Walker's probably 15. The Titanic Walker's probably each. But then we move on to Orc shooting units. Well, let's get more, creative with it. Well, what about obviously not tank busters, right? Because GW, I want tank busters. I think they could be better. I don't even think they're worth what they're at now. Pretty much, they're unreliable. But what I would say is, even though they could be better, GW will not do it out of fear because of how they've already messed up the Orks as a whole when they release these units. And so if they are going to make some kind of unit shooting better, it could be fixed mech guns. Now, I think they should also be able to move a little faster. Moving 3 is a little kind of stupid. Let's at least make them 4 or 5 or something. But with that being said, I think one, their bubble chucker needs to be, you can actually choose it. And if you choose it, maybe it could become hazardous, whatever it could be. But they also need to come down in points. I want to see a mech go down to 40 points. That'd be a lot more helpful to be considering those. Still would be very situational to bring, but they help solve the problem with, well, there's some anti-tank potential. Smasher guns have good AP. You can stack buffs to ignore cover or give additional AP or give rerolls on them. So there are ways to actually consider mech guns and more shooting platforms, but they need a little bit of walk, buffs and looking at. Now, I also think that we can get a strength increase, that's what the S is, on all of our custom mega blasters and just other walker weapons. I think even the Gorkanauts Gatling gun can go up to strength 7. I think the main weapon on the Morkanaut should go up to at least strength 11, if not 12. I think that thing should also have a built-in maybe ignore cover, an additional AP if it's the closest target, or something like that. As right now, their datasheet buffs are just completely silly and kind of underwhelming. So when I was thinking about something to gain AP in combat, it also means shooting too. Now, that's why I do find there is potential for it, but we would be looking at data sheet changes or some kind of actual detachment buff. Like if you in tandem added, like if you got within 9, you ignored cover with your buggies, right? Maybe that would be more interesting. Or if you got within 9, you could ignore cover with your walker, for example, whatever. But there does need to be something to allow Orks to at least pitter patter the enemy down with their weapons if you're not making them more reliable to actually hit. And with volume, they actually need to be impactful when they wound and not just let the enemy continuously take 3 ups, 2 ups, saves the entire game. It's kind of silly. And yeah, walkers, like people are saying now, Meltas not existing in the Orc Codex is also kind of awkward. So yeah, I'd like to see buffs on that. And last but not least, crump. Do we crump or not? What I mean by that is our elite infantry is so underwhelming in my opinion. A power claw is not that impressive. I mean, a space marine sergeant power fist is hitting on 3s with strength 8, just 1 less strength than our elite infantry unit. Premier premium melee unit hitting on 4s. I mean, so much stuff's built in with -1 to hit, -1 damage, -1 to wound, -1. There's all this stuff that is now come up that our crumping units just really have no place. If you're looking at Meganob, sure, they got the AP and the strength, but then they lost the volume because everybody has an invuln. Okay, well, if you go to the knobs, well, they lack the AP and actual damage because everybody has reduced damage by 1, or they have too much toughness or 2 up saves. Oh, well, what if we go into squigs? Well, they just have no AP. They don't even know what they're doing anymore, right? They have no character buff or synergy to make them more efficient at combat. They just have, I hope I hit you hard enough. So I want our elite infantry needs to come down in points or get another relook at if Orks come up. And like I said earlier, I already stated why I don't think that's too out of the question. So nonetheless, I think that though GW is obvious not to, buff units that have been problematic in the past, that doesn't mean I don't think GW is not going to look at these kind of units. Also, buggies could be incorporated into these other popular potential. Trust me, I love buggies. I just think buggies need huge data sheet rehauls, because they're at some point they're just going to be efficient for point cost. I mean, they're already 70 points per what they are, but they on the field they're the size of a little tank. So it's like, well, I want more of the tank aspect than just the cheap stats aspect. Yeah. Let's fix this and adjust this a little bit more. Okay. So the buggies can end up on here, but they need a little bit more on doing with that. So nonetheless, as the meta is unraveling and things are getting more defensively tough, but also ability to put the output on you, I think that not only do we need our walkers to come out and become cheaper, but I think they need to actually be able to deliver on the damage, the multi-phase damage, and that as well. Especially if we're going to lean away from just everything being basically infantry, hoping to hit you on the wall with gas support. Because if for some reason gas takes a points increase, which would be absurd when we just looked at how orcs are actually able to perform at the top level. I think orcs would immediately suffer and become a very bad faction again. So I think we very much need GW to again give us just a little bit of stimulation, not because I'm trying to become the best faction in 40K, but as everything's creeping up, it would not take too much to make us fall flat again for another couple months, especially if Gaz took a buff, or to be honest, just become boring because Gaz becomes the only way to play efficiently unless you're a specialist who's willing to just play anything until you get it right. So not all of us are like that and got that time. So with that being said, what detachments have some potential? Of course, Warhorde always have potential if you bring point count down. But in all, I'd say 1, Green Tide. If GW gives us some of our rules back, like Invulns, brings boyz down to 160 points again, and maybe for some way, it's hard to say because of the Vitrix Guard, right? So it was with a grain of salt. I was thinking about Green Tide, but with WCW performance, honestly, Green Tide had the best record. So even though Dreadmob ended up having the best performance of a ranking, as for actual win performances, we had multiple people that were Green Tide enthusiasts that did well at Worlds. Then we have Dreadmob. I think because GW is likely to look at our safer unit to buff, I think walkers are actually going to get looked at more than anything else, though I think it wouldn't take too much to make something like a squig completely relevant and fun to use. Then we have the Hunt. I think because the Hunt already has avenues to, 1, have advance and charges outside of the wall, but 2, have additional AP and still do the melee thing. I think if you brought down just all of those unit points and gave a little tweak, they could get a buff. And it seems like a lot, but honestly, you just need like Snaggers come down a little bit more, Squigs come down a little bit more, and boom, that could become interesting as well. Not saying it's going to like win a bunch of different events, but it could keep us in the game, possibly, with a grain of, again, just speculation. But then we go to Mordaka. Now, Mordaka was actually a weird pick for me because ultimately I hate the Mordaka detachment rule. I absolutely hate it because GW is essentially telling me you pay a whole detachment rule to get assault, which you should already have for your combined arms army, yet you're going to get it with just about no buffs and still suck at shooting, but we'll give you sustain. The reason why I bring Mordaka in here is because, again, Mordaka is actually on the cusp of being useful simply because its detachment stratagems are not restrictive and they provide us with the combined arms aspect that we really desire and desperately need. So being able to reroll wounds is crazy for orcs, yet we never use the strat for Mordaka because the detachment rule sucks butt. Then we go to, you can get a wall outside of the wall. Amazing, heartfelt dream rule. Can never use it because the detachment rule sucks. Oh, I can ignore cover. I can get additional AP in shooting. Your detachment rule sucks. Right? So you can't make an entire army out of just stratagems because you only have so much CP and so many units can activate through them. But because the detachment rules is a universal, easy thing to just adjust once, it will fall down to everything else and make everything else way more dynamic. So if you could get the detachment rule right, you can drastically now improve this combined arms detachment and bring it up to a place where it could become relevant and fun to use. So if GW for some reason comes across this and listens to it right, hear me now, GW. Don't be silly. You know, Bad Moons wasn't crazy in 8th edition. We can get sustain all the time on this detachment, at least for the infantry and walker units, at least. Because trust me, no matter what you say, the Morkanot and Gorkanot, well, none of the kill cans are that scary with sustain. Also, I think you can also consider the fact that it would make up for the fact that you came out with a useless detachment just to saturate our book and make our book even more relevant, and then completely threw us off our feet. So I very much think that we could have fun with it, though it's hard to say what GW would do. I'm also in favor of Orks getting some kind of reroll ones to wound incorporated into their codex at some point. I'm totally into them introducing. I'm really much into reactive moves. I love reactive moves in 40K. I think they're super fun and dynamic. I would love for Orks to get that as well. But all in all, to be honest, Mordaka has a lot of, has a good outline for what actually could become interesting if GW can make a relevant detachment rule and not just give us back a rule we should already have. So with that being said, I think that Orcs shouldn't be in a pessimistic point of view on looking into changes that we're going to have. I think for the most part, things are going to be all right because there's no reason GW would throw us on the ground, right? And for no reason, we're already kind of bad. But there's a chance they would look at gas, which we should definitely attack full wall energy mode if they do that. But because I don't think they will do that, I think for the most part we should just be optimistic and see what we're going to get. Because at the same time, Orcs are looking to be the next big bad next addition, which means we're NGW's eye in the back of their mind at all times. So now we're in the live chat section. We do have a lot of heavy live chat going on. And so keep it up with you guys right now. So I'm going to cover some of those super chats. Oh, so we got a bunch of gifted memberships and stuff in chats. Of course, this is live. I'll keep talking. So let me know what you guys think. If I covered all your grievances and kind of gave a balanced thought on both points of view from a realist and an optimist and a thematic player's point of view, because honestly, I'm an enthusiast, dude. I want to make so many things work. Like that's why I breach Killican so much. And then everybody thought I was silly, but then we look at Worlds and the best person ran Killican. So either we're both out of our minds, and because of that we made it work, or we're onto something. Orcs want assault weapons, reroll ones. I see. Whoa, to Flynn. Yeah. It's almost as if we should just obviously have assault weapons, to be honest. Like, okay, maybe you don't need to make our tank bust as assault. Sure, whatever. You can pick a unit that's not. But for the most part, a lot of our weapons should already have assault on them, just because it's just a silly condition that Orcs can't use weapons that we pay for in points and that are considered a part of our faction strength and balance, but we pretty much can never use it. Just like bomb squigs themselves. Thank you for reminding me. How can I forget the bomb squig part? I'm still pissed that bomb squigs suck. And what I mean by that is how they work now, where you have to see them and such. Dude, so trash. And a 3+, so trash. I need bomb squigs to work even when we advance. So not only do I want to be shoot, but I need to be able to use my bomb squig. So thank you, Flynn, for reminding me of that and raging me further. That's proper Orky of you. Whoa! All right. So thank you for that generous gift. That's very humbling of you, as always. Another gift that's always very humbling is Jay Hume, 10 wild after gifted memberships. Whoa! For Get Stuck In, lads. We put out a poll there for what after action reports going to come out. I want to say I apologize to our community for not coming out with that sooner, but I'm changing the ways it's all coming out. And with that being said, the members have voted, and I'm going to be running Cult of Speed for the after action reports, the little series, and then I'll move on from there. So of course, 10 memberships. Make sure you put your votes in. Let me know what you want me to see in after action reports. They'll make good on that after the video will be coming out soon in a couple days. Thank you very much for that, Jay Hume. Love you. Then we have our boy. Oh, you changed your name. Okay, E-Cop changed your name, but I remember best org channel for proper gifts, 24 Wall Tactics membership. You, Jay Hume, all you guys been out here for such a long damn time. Thank you very much, E-Cop, because you've been here since the very beginning. And I hope you're still getting stuck in and having a great time. Because you were one of the first gets we ever had around here, one of the first spores thing. Nice to see you. We need justice for our second tactical order. Whoa, for sure, dude. Now, obviously, look at the name, WAAAGH Tactics. I would absolutely love to have more enthusiasm for the Tactical Brigade, but that was swiftly taken from me when they took that second order away. I think we should definitely get that second order. If it's not on infantry, you need to allow it to be on mounted units. And even then, it wouldn't even be that interesting enough for me. Another thing is just, as much as I absolutely love the Met Captain thing, it's once you start paying for a character to be on every unit to make the detachment work, it means you're playing just very elite. I got 6 pieces that want to go off and do something on one phase damn near every time. And it's just not that compelling or tactical, in my opinion, right? I need my one unit to be able to do multi things. I need it to shoot, charge, move, stealth, if I'm paying elite infantry costs, I need my units to feel elite. I need one turn game abilities. I need to fight first. I need something tactical that's going to make me be able to make dynamic, interesting movements. I want an interesting heroic interventions to pop off. I want counter charges. I want like just traps that I can set for my opponent if I'm supposedly a cunning git. And just Tactical Brigade does not offer that to any degree. It just totally misses the mark where it's at now. But thank you for that. And of course, our boy Blood Moons, Murder Mouth, War for 10 top WAAAGH Tactics memberships is get. I appreciate you, homie, as always, sticking around, getting stuck in. You know more than anybody how the Bully Boys have struggled, man. And it's one of those things that we get excited and then GW just throws everything on its head. But you were ahead of the game with all those wagons, I guess. Didn't need 3, but you were right to have 2. So thank you very much for that. I'll make you proud with those after action reports. And then of course, give us scary mega knobs. So this, don't worry, this goes with Yugi Cup. I think we need an epic character. Uftak needs to be brought into the game. That hammer needs to be 3 damage. And with that, we need mega knobs. So I'm gonna actually, okay, guys, tell me this, E-Cop, you yourself, E-Cop, super chatter, because we go long back. I'm thinking about doing a reaction video to some people because people want to talk about orcs, but then they don't know about orcs. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm almost in the place where I want to talk about it and have that reaction going on video, but it's not common in 40K community to do that. So I don't know if it's accepted or not. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, Mega Knobs. Mega Knobs and lore look like little mini firstborn dreadnoughts, right? I'm not saying they need to be that big or outrageous, but you cannot be 2 damage and only get 2 attacks and then look at a Deathwing Knight and tell me that's okay. So GW's out of their minds right now with what they're doing. I mean, the Vintrix Guard right now, what the 4 wounds? It's funny because the other day, I'm telling you guys, before even looking at the Vintrix Guard, I was saying that the new Mega Knob should be 4 wounds. Orcs should have more wounds than Space Marines. And Space Marines got another unit that got 4 wounds before us. I mean, my other army, one of my second army I ever owned was Custodes. 4 wounds Custodes. Oh, but just now Space Marines have the same thing. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. But we can't have a feel no pain with 3 wounds and no invul. But Victrix Guard, they can get all time art as nails essentially, and they're a good amount of attacks, and it's just silly. It's just silly amount of buffs. But yeah, Mega Knobs need to be scary. I think they need to always have 3 AP, even if you're going to keep them low amount of attacks. Our elite infantry needs to stop hitting on 4s if no one else is dealing with that in 40K. So just relax on that, GW. Need to fix that. So thank you very much for that, for the $5, homie, because you already supported a lot and you're still getting stuck in that. Just like our boy Kane Asylum, Gork and Mork need help. Please roast Art and War about their takes. Oh, which part do you want me to roast? Which part? That's funny. You trying to start beef? It's funny because I want to do a reaction to Art of War a little bit, not in a negative way, because I actually like Art of War a lot. So generally I like most of those guys, but I would say okay, let's start the roast. No, I'm just kidding. What I will say is I'm very grateful for Michael Mann being there. He's a channel. We love him on the channel. He's been on the guest channel, before in the past. So I definitely have nothing bad to say about Michael Mann as a whole. What I would want to do is actually clear out some of his statements, maybe get more clear understanding, and because we do talk a little bit, maybe unpack his statements a little bit. But what I would say is, one, where they placed Orks in the tier list was outrageously silly. And we knew that at the time, like we talked about in our community, like maybe because they deal with, Brian Sepp, right? Again, it's a perspective. It's an anecdotal point of view, which all of us have about each other's factions, right? So again, they're humans, but they're going against Brian Sepp, one of the best players ever. Then you have at Orks, then you have Michael Mann right around the corner, an amazing Orc player as well. Then you have Jack around. So these very good or general players like Siegs and John, they're in the house, and obviously they performed. We see them at Worlds. They perform, so they're thinking, well, if I'm struggling with this, I'm sure that everyone can struggle with this if they meet a player with the same skill set. That being said, there is a huge gap based off the stats and the actual players we see, where to play Orks at that level is just so uncommon that the gap of their anecdotal experience and everybody else's is completely skewed. And then people just kind of absorb their point, the anecdotal experience of the Art of War players, and then they kind of start to project that. And in the way the general community gets their own WAAAGH energy going, and then they get this understanding of Orks, and then GW thinks it's true, and then it's not true, and everything just goes unraveling weird. And then GW gives us extra cool rules, and then all of a sudden we're super powerful, and everybody thinks their assumptions were right. So then it's like a really chaotic mixture of like the truth is in the gray zone. So there is some times when they were right about Orks, but in their recent take about Orks, they were wrong. As in, in a one game situation where it's like sudden death, maybe you could argue, if I have to beat you this one time on a mission of my choice, I could beat anybody, right? Brian Sepp might be able to go up to them and say that to anybody at the Art of War house. Michael Mann might, in the best case, be able to say, if I pick my mission and my layout, I could beat anyone. Maybe he could say that. I don't know. But I think that's kind of how people kind of look at it, where they know Orks can beat them, but they don't think, well, when I go to a 5 or 8 round event, the chances that the Orks could even make it past the purge the foe round, the fact that Orks could even make it past some of these like just initial missions that are going to struggle with is going to be an issue. Like it's kind of like a little bit of that taken in mind. So I don't really have too much beef. I think I'd rather do a reaction video and unpack their actual statements, but I think that Michael knows what he's talking about, but I also think he's spread thin playing a lot of different factions. And he's right about the fact that Orks struggle to be reliable or perform at top tables, which is why they're not looked at the top for them top table players. But I think as a whole, we can actually get performance with a lot of detachments. But he'll confess that as well. When he's on the channel, he said that as well. He likes Dread Mob, he likes Cult of Speed, he likes Warhorde. So I mean, he knows about that. So yeah, I mean, if you want me to say more, I will. But I'm a fan. I don't want beef to crap on anybody, but I do like to react to people and have conversations. So I'm not against that. Something is wrong with my account. Pan purchase base membership, but yes, I am ECOB, and knobs are pretty lame. Yeah, ECOB, what's up? I think it's your settings. If for some reason you can't get a membership, generally it's like your location settings or settings of receiving stuff, or it's it's like a weird general setting of purchases. So it's actually a setting feature from what I understand, but I don't know where it's from. So I'm sorry. I wish I knew more about that. It's weird how it functions to some people. I know like some of our gets in Australia can't do it either. And yeah, knobs are super lame, to be honest. And then don't get me started on the knob keyword itself, bro. Like so a break a boy is not a knob because you call him a boy, but he has a knob stat line in every metric. Okay. That's a thing. Like, are we just now just changing what it means to be a knob? Are we just conflating what it is to be an orc boy or a knob or ard boy or boss or war boss? Like, is it just in GW's eyes, if it's green and just a dude, that's good enough? It's just a boy. Like, there's distinctions here, guys. GW, right? You got to stop with this. I'm gonna bring this model line out. It reflects a knob in every way, but it doesn't have the knob keyword. I won't call it a knob. I'll call it a boy and confuse everybody that looks at orc lore. What? Right? So, breaka boys are actually breaka knobs, right? In reality, flash gits are essentially knobs in body, right? They're still gits, but for example, like the distinction of what it is to be a boss You know, some people would argue, well, a break a boy wall tactics. I love when people reply to me, by the way. So I love when people are like, well, wall tactics, listen, the 32 mil base means it's you know, a boy base, and the 40 mil clearly is the knob. So those guys are boys. Okay. Totally get I get you on that. I really, really, really do. But did you ever consider that he could just be a boss? Right? Because knobs already are on 32 mil bases. Now, in the future, things could change and become better. Sure, that's fine. I understand that. But we're talking about the right now. GW released it in this edition with multiple years in its pocket, right? You need to understand that you could easily say that knobs are the other 5 dudes, and then the guy leading them is a boss, right? Like, you know, a boss isn't necessarily a war boss, right? If you look at the Uftak Brutal Cunning book, right? When Uftak started to become bigger, there was a point where he called himself a boss, right? Because he wasn't necessarily a war boss. He was bigger than a knob. He was in a nice niche zone. So now we look at boss and we go, well, Snickrod is a boss. He's not a war boss. See, and this confused people when rules came out for Tactical Brigade. They were like, well, what is Snickrod? He's a boss. Isn't that a war boss? No. A boss is not a war boss. It's someone that could contend for a war boss position or could hypothetically fill the role of a war boss if he was to lose. But if he was to die. But the point is that the war boss is still superior and bigger and such, right? So there's these in between lines of basic infantry, and then Ard boys and Scar boys and Bully boys used to be considered guys with bullet personal bodyguards. But the point is that there are these tiers to this, and right now it's just like boy, but then like a snagga, but then like a breaker boy, but then like a knob, and then like a mega knob. It's like, ugh. All of our elite infantry are like at this weird mix zone of like you can barely find the distinction between elite and just hyper efficient data battle line. Like it just gets really silly. I'm not really I don't really like it, to be honest. And then don't get me started about burners. I see someone in chat say something about burners. God, burners suck. But yeah. So thank you. I got on a little bit of a tangent there, but I guess that's the point of why you guys asked me the question. So thank you very much, homie. And hopefully we figure that out so you can get a channel membership. Of course, we have Patreon too. If you can get in there, maybe, and we can talk to you there too. But yeah, thank you, homie. Let's see. Yes, everybody's over here talking and getting excited. Yeah, I don't know. People are saying yeah, it's trash. Because they're like, yeah, I appreciate how everybody is enthusiastic and passionate about what they think. Yeah, knobs. What's up, Josh Hart? Daggers. What's up, you guys? What we got? Ooh, right here. We have 2 wounds, 4+ armor, big tech. Boss has +1 weapon skill. I don't want my models in my unit to have different stats because that'll start confuse and like slow down the game a little bit. But I do think that there should be some kind of more efficient unit or leader or something where maybe as a special weapon as the boss, and that special weapon gives them more attacks, or you know what I mean? Like that, I'm willing to do that where you make the boss even bigger and better. Like maybe he has a 3 damage weapon. But maybe, you know, so I guess maybe you weren't too off with that. But thank you very much for that 19 membership. Whoa, super chat. Nonetheless, I think we all agree that there should be way more dynamic damages and keywords and synergies between all of our orc units, because like our elite infantry kind of just look like glamored up trash a lot of the time, in my opinion, right? So let's see what else everybody is saying, because you guys are going so fast. I got around. Yeah. And what's up, Kenyak Lupak? Also, 11th is like right around the corner. Yes, it is. So you guys tell me, and rewatch and now live, should I do a reaction video and like react to maybe Art of War and WAAAGH and a few other gets talking about orcs? I think the 40K community needs to hear from the gets themselves from now on. You know what I mean? Everybody talks about us, but you know, it's about time for us to be heard. You know, when Gaz was coming through and he was like Armageddon, he was like, here I come, prepare the defenses. You know, like I appreciate that. If you didn't know in lore, long story short, when the orcs were invading with their attack moons, and from their attack moons, they would send out wall, you know, signals and waves of psychic energy to the planets they were attacking, and they'd tell them, "We are coming. So make sure your defenses are nice and sturdy and proper for us. All right. No other faction does that in 40K, where they're like, just we're coming. We're completely forfeiting the element of surprise. You have a year before we get to you sometimes, but we're coming. Right. No other faction does that in 40K, right? 10 toes down, they stand ready to go. So that being said, I mean, that'd be fun to I got involved there, but that'd be fun to talk about other people and talk with other people about orcs. Sorry. So that'd be sick. So thank you for that. 11th itch and right at the corner. What do you think we're most likely things to change? What's up, Flynn? Do you think for our actual data slate, the most likely thing to change? I think I said in there though that I think the walkers are likely most likely thing to change. For GW possibly adjust just a little bit here and there because they're not afraid of our walkers in that sense. So I think something along the lines of dealing with our walkers or buffing our walkers is the most likely. But not sure about that. But thank you for 6 months, homie. Whoa, you've been active since you got here. You grew as a spore, homie. You've been here the whole time. Lovely. Nice to see you. Zod not being a Snaga is criminal. I remember I was actually I'm a Zod fan, remember, right? I remember I was in the camp of like, we don't need Zod to have the Snaga keyword. He might be too strong. I think where we're at now in the meta and how they restricted Zod from actually getting a second wand such from Mordaka, it's like, you know what? Whatever, dude. Let him get tougher. I'm cool with it. Let's see what other people are saying here. I'm gonna give us hopes for 11th in the future. Don't worry. Oh, okay, Flynn. Okay, you think reaction? Let's go. I'm thinking about doing reaction videos, right? See if I can just see what some guys are saying. I'll probably sit back, just generally be doing a stream and kind of go through them, but I'm not sure how people generally do those in 40K community. So, of course, not slander or anything crazy like that, but I would have a good time, right? A good time with all them gets. That'd be cool. I need WAAAGH tactics to moderate Valrak. Old Big Mac, red ones go fast to me moderate them. Do I gotta crump them? No, I'm just kidding. Do we have 10 toes? I do, yes. Yes, I still do. Now, does every orc have 10 toes? I don't think so. I just have a feeling, like, tell me if I'm wrong. Do you not think squigs just seem like they'd eat your toes often? Right? I mean, I don't know why that's like just a pronounced thought in my head, but if like imagine you're sleeping, cats kind of do whatever they want at night, and dogs, you don't notice them. I assume a squig, Princess looks like she'd be a toe eater, if she's not getting a hold of a grot. So I don't know if they all got 10 toes. They might have lost a couple here and there. Also, they don't have good firearm safety training. So, pop, they might disarm their firearm into their own feet. I don't know. But do we have 10 toes? We would mean me, you, and me. I'm not sure if you have 10 toes, but I do. Orcs are badass. Yeah, I mean, I think I like orcs because they're in that perfect zone of like the community's sick and fun and good at arc, but we have our own really unique identity. No one else is funny and scary and OG, as in like original and long standing. And no one can fluctuate from being completely terrifying to being completely just background noise. So I like how orcs can be third partied a lot, like brought involved into a bunch of different storylines. I like how they can, overcome crazy odds or become cool, interesting allies to opponents. Like they have so much growth, like I was talking about in other videos, of actual like story potential that people overlook all the time because orcs actually have unique personalities among one another. Like there's far more orc personality in one orc clan than the entire Valrek's gonna get mad at me. But then the entire personalities of in the entire line of personalities for all the Sons of Dorn, right? One orc clan has more personality types and interesting characters than the entire bloodline of Dorn. All right. And mind you, I am actually right here. Look, not even fronting. I'm actually an Imperial Fist fan. Look it, I'm showing you. Got an Imperial Fist Blade Guard right here next to me. I even painted a captain. See, so I'm not Valrak. I'm not even just popping smoke here. I mean it though. Our guys are way more funny. and interesting, right? And I think that's going to be cool for the Amazon and stuff like that, and us becoming the big bads in 11th edition. So I really hope people, look more at Orks and think like, hey, we're gonna, you know, uh, we're gonna have a good time in 11th edition. I'll tell you that much. Even if power creep comes for us, we'll have a good time. Constructive criticism on Art of War is reasonable. I think with love, right? Because they could, they cover so much stuff. I'm not like trying to ever stand on their, clip, like get a clip on them or something, like stab in the back or anything like that, because I'm a fan, like I said, of Michael Mann, and like, I met Nick and briefly in the past at, big events and such. And I liked them even before I had a channel. So obviously it's not in a bad way. I don't even think it's going to be necessarily like hating on them. I think it'd be more just like unpacking what they say and how I interpret it, and maybe what I agree with and what I don't agree with. So it could become criticism, but generally I just want to kind of talk. I just want a reason to talk more about Orks. You know what I'm saying? And since I don't got someone here, I'll just pull in one of them gets digitally from far away and talk to them. So we'll see. The toes grow back. I mean, a pain boss could put them back for you. Imperial bisques are cardboard flat and boring. Okay, you know what? Yes, but I like I said, I actually do have them as an army, and I do use them, very, very, very casually, randomly. But you know, I was just saying, I think it's just because Orks are so cool that Imperial Fists and most Space Marines don't look that cool compared to them, at least in personality traits. Yeah, Ork characters from the perspective of other characters is freaking hilarious. Yes, it is. Sometimes you're scared of us, and sometimes they think we're just totally freaking weird and like clueless. It's great. Uh, yeah, for sure. Art of War guys are active, and they're always, dude. Like man, right now, trust me, he understands what he's talking about with Orks. He knows the diversity within the Orks, but he's also playing a bunch of different factions, and he sees how much awesome rules everybody else does. And then he goes back to Orks, and he's like, "Oh, all I can do is line up this perfect one chin punch on you." It's like I can see why that'd be frustrating for him, especially because he's playing against optimized list every single day against optimized players. It's like, bro, I can't have my unreliable Orks not doing the reliable thing right now, right? So we can come slack in our community there, but trust me, he knows Orks are diverse and super cool. But how can you not be frustrated that like Vitrix Guard are cheaper than Gaz and better than Gaz's unit? How can you not be annoyed that Black Templars and for a second, Space Wolves back there with their Wolf Guard were running better mobs than us? I mean, I know a Zerk unit is like better, like cost more than us, excuse me, but a 20-man unit of Khorne Berserkers is way more terrifying and has way more rule stacking potential than any Ork mob in any detachment, including Gaz's unit with Gaz included on him, right? If you don't know what a Khorne Berserker unit can do, it's not like what he just does on its own. It's how many buffs it can stack on it. It makes it so. It's not that I want them not to have that. They should have cool stuff like that. I'm just saying that's what makes us in rules centric not that interesting or reliable, and why, someone like Man could be like, yeah, it's almost not even worth figuring out sometimes, right? Because remember, Man was running cans at Worlds like 2 years ago, and no one would run cans back then. I used to play with Nick. It's a good minute. Well, I would say I met Nick. I don't know, Grammy. I think that's subjective, people. I don't think that's true, personally, right? But teach their own. What I would say is, he's actually pretty awesome when I met him in person. A funny story with that is I was at this Vegas Teams event, and it was like 4 in the morning. And Nick is sitting right there across from me and my teammates, including David, the channel member, the channel co-founder. And he were just casually all talking at 4 in the morning. Mind you, the event starts at like 8, whatever. Things are starting to pop off at it. I'm supposed to wake up at like 7. And he just looks at me and he goes, "Don't you guys have to go to sleep?" Now, I was suffering that next day. And I'll tell you what, Nick's team won that event, and Nick did not lose those games. So I don't know how he functioned so well at such a high level with such a little bit of sleep, but that was freaking awesome. So that man will always have my respect as a boss for that. So that's what I'm saying, guys. It's all with love for anybody. I'm also a fan of like Morning Glory. Shout out to 6+ Stevo, by the way. 6+ Stevo. I seen you comments about here. Love you, good dude. I remember watching you when I first started the channel, when I first started Orks. So yeah. And so I think with that being said, I think we hit it. We ended up going to the 1 hour mark. I was trying to keep it to 30, but hey, you guys got stuck in with those chats at the end and kept things going. So all in all, just to conclude it, don't think Orks going to take too much serious changes, but I think we're going to have a great time in the future regardless, because of the diversity we have with detachments, the fact that ultimately GW is looking to headhunt a lot of other factions and not us, meaning that if the right factions come down, there's a good chance that we slip through and just have better matchups as a whole when we go to events, meaning that regardless of what style orc you play, you can still, you know, get stuck in and have a good time. So though at the top layers, sorry to my super competitive gets where, you know, we struggle to actually go out and win events and struggle to actually go out and go undefeated sometimes, and I'm totally with you on that, because man, I'm with you, dude. I'm like, man, I just need to avoid this 1 or 2 people matchups, and then boom, round 2, it's like, all right, you got that guy. I'm like, oh, let's go. You know what I mean? So I know how that feels for those competitive gets. So trust me, I know that we could use some juice. But at the same time, I'm also on the same side of people that like, bro, I want to jump between like 4 detachments. So at the same time, you know, I'm happy with that part of Orks. So all in all, just remember, guys, in the far, far future where there is only a war, Orks are the only ones having fun. So there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.